Hi, all. Welcome to yet another Coot podcast series. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Jacob Mathew, who's from the Middle East. He's a renowned CIO from the UAE. Currently, he is serving as the head of information and technology in the government entity in the UAE. Now, I must share this with all of you. Every time I get a LinkedIn notification from Jacob's post, it's no surprise for me that watching him celebrating yet another CIO awards every now and then. So, in this podcast, we are going to understand and learn from him how is he looking into the SaaS adoption trends. So, let's welcome Jacob. Hi, Jacob. Thank you so much for taking out time for all of us. Very warm welcome, Jacob.
Hi, Nageshri. Yeah, thank you very much for your kind invite and for your kind words. I believe I'm a student, and I believe there'll be much more experienced and more qualified people listening to this podcast. But I've been in this industry for a little over 27 years, and I have now started to pay back in terms of mentoring, fellowship, coaching, and not just to individuals, but also companies in terms of advisory. So it's just a way of paying back to the society for all the good people have done to me, and so many others are doing the same thing. So I'm just happy to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacob. It means a lot to SaaS founders like us. Um, so let's start with a very quick introduction from your side, Jacob. What is your current role as a head of information and technology in the government entity? If you could give a brief introduction on your current role.
Yeah, so I've been in the current role for a little over 6.5 years. I'm looking after the technology and cybersecurity for a government entity here in the United Arab Emirates. And previous to that, I was also based in UAE, but working in Dubai for a multinational company. I was looking after technology and cybersecurity across Middle East and North Africa for a little over 18 years.
Sure. So, you have plethora of experience, Jacob, and so if you could, out of your experience so far, it's more than 18 years, as you mentioned. If you could share your thoughts on the SaaS adoption trends happening, especially in the Middle East, in Middle East currently, in comparison to the on-premise systems, ongoing systems, and as a tech leader, what are the key trends and challenges that you foresee in the near future, Jacob?
Yeah, so the adoption of SaaS in the Middle East, it's forecast to grow leaps and bounds. It's over 18.5% CAGR every year from 2023 to 2030. A lot of companies and governments have already adopted cloud in the region, either one or more, and some have completely moved to cloud. So there's a lot of adoption of SaaS solutions in the region. And that's driven by basically, I believe what's happening is as the consumers for the home tech, but the employees and the companies, they're seeing how the mobile app and how things are moving so fast, whether it's on Android or Apple. So they expect the same experience. They can't wait 1 week or 1 year for things to move. So I believe there's a strong adoption of SaaS model because today, if, for example, you or me, we want to download a mobile app for encyclopedia, whatever we want, or we want an app, or we want some help, we just go there, download, in a couple of seconds, we have it and we're able to use it. So going to old days of making a PO, getting the hardware, waiting for 1 month, 2 months for hardware to come, then install it, set it up. Those on-prem days, I believe they are by and large, completely gone. So that's actually pushing the adoption of SaaS, the digital transformation. And the problem is when one company or in the industry is moving, the rest are trying to catch up because others are going to lose market share. So there's a big push for SaaS, I believe, around the world, but especially in the Middle East, driven, I believe, primarily from Saudi and UAE, because these two countries have a very driven and top leadership where they're trying to move the country and the citizens ahead. So one of the other problems with the on-prem model is the scalability. For example, if you have a period end or you're doing some large models or a month-end processing, you have that only during that particular period, or maybe a period end or beginning. In the on-prem world, you have to have a large hardware and large things which mostly will not be used. Whereas if you're
Mm,
using a SaaS model and
mm,
it's used and set up correctly, and we can just tweak during those periods, we burst up the traffic and bring it down, so we can use the dollar, the spend very carefully. And also with the remote work after COVID, a lot of companies
yeah.
have come back, but a lot of us are still continue to work from home, or they have a hybrid model, some days in
Mm,
office, some days come into work. So again, all that models will be best suited on SaaS because then you're not depending on the office infrastructure. You don't need things in the office because what happens is if you are remote and you want to use an on-prem solution, you have to come traffic inside and the traffic go out. And then there's a lot of, so here it's very effective and quick to use SaaS models. In terms of challenges, there are quite a bit of them as well. So one of the issues in the region
mm,
is we look at the local laws and regulations.
mm,
We need the solution to be adaptable to the local market in the Middle East, which is primarily we talk about like having Arabic support,
mm.
um, not just translation from English to Arabic, but have actually native Arabic support. In a sense, it makes it easy for citizens and residents of the Middle East to use it. We also look at different laws and regulations and data. People are not aware. People know about GDPR and they know about a lot of other laws and ISO standards. But even in the region, there are quite a lot of laws. So SaaS providers, so these are the limitations. So we need to look at in terms of
Yeah.
SaaS.
Sure, Jacob. So you rightly mentioned about, the digital transformation and post-COVID, how Middle East is, no doubt it is advancing and it is emerging as a leader, especially in the AI and Gen AI space. I saw very interesting applications, especially in the government healthcare sector, wherein which, consumers are really happy with the Gen AI application, Jacob. Now, if you can, throw some light on how is your journey in the digital transformation, because you mentioned this and this sort of curiosity, want to understand how was your experience in the digital transformation phase. And one question that we keep getting from the SaaS founders, the global SaaS founders who are trying to collaborate with Middle East, especially with the government entity, they say that they are the clients are asking for the on premise. So is it shifting slowly from on prem to cloud and the SaaS? Jacob, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, as I said, I was alluded Nagesh to the previously. As far as applications are concerned, I think both government and multinationals and even corporates are
Mm,
looking at SaaS models because it makes it generally, SaaS models are used. I mean, obviously, we have to look at industry and specific, but in general, SaaS models are extremely used. But in terms of locally global models, what we'll be looking at is local presence rather
Okay.
than having a local on-prem. Local presence, in terms of what happens is we don't, whether it's, I worked, as I said, in a multinational for 18 and a half
Yeah.
years and now
Yeah.
in the government. So even in both the cases and
Mm.
all my tenure, the the end user, whether it's the government or the private sector, they're not looking for a fly-by-night operator. That somebody comes
Mm.
in from the US or India,
Mhm.
comes and
Okay.
signs a contract, shakes your hands, and then disappears. So
Mhm.
we look at local presence.
Okay.
And in the government, we also look at contribution to local economy. Because end of the day, the government is there for the people.
Mm.
So they're looking at what the potential supply is contributing to the local economy
Okay.
in terms of employment, UAE national empowerment, not just UAE, I'm talking generally local empowerment,
Mm.
looking at the local payback to the local economy, the national workforce. So these are things that we look at because also what are they doing in terms of equipping nationals with training, with opportunities to grow,
Mhm.
and things like that. And so there are two things for local companies. If you look at local presence in terms of support,
Mm.
if you need a technical support, we don't want to wait for US hours or European hours, especially in Saudi and other countries in the region where the
Mm.
weekends don't match, and people on Sundays the rest of the region except UAE is working,
Mhm.
and we can't depend or wait for we need support.
Yeah.
So we look at local support, local
Okay.
partners in terms of training,
Mm.
mentorship,
Mm.
and UAE, I mean, local national empowerment,
Mhm.
employment, local economy, support. So these are factors we look at.
Okay.
Even when I was in the private sector, even then I would prefer working with companies that are based locally or
Okay.
have a strong presence in Middle East. Because in my previous role, I was responsible for MENA for 12 countries, 24 offices. So
Okay.
when we were working with a company, a SaaS company, and we had SaaS solutions used region-wide, it was hosted, it's one place, but used everywhere. But again, we looked at the support available
Okay.
locally. We looked at how they have looked at Arabic support, how they looked at supporting weekends and Middle East working hours. So those are
Got it.
some things. And the last but not the least is the culture.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
culture is very important in the Middle East. I think the Middle East culture, to be honest, is quite similar to Indian culture,
Mm.
where we are hospitable, we welcome guests, and there's a lot of culture. It needs to be, so if people have a very bossy attitude or don't treat people well, it's not very well looked up to in the region.
Got it. No, that's very super helpful, Jacob. You have preempted two of my questions, in fact.
Okay.
So, one, you mentioned strong presence. Okay, so that again, it means just a small clarification that local presence, you meant local presence only, right? What do you mean by strong presence, Jacob?
Yeah, local presence. Yeah, so strong presence in terms of some countries or companies and including SaaS providers,
Mm.
they have an office because they have to, for legal regulatory requirements, for a setup. For example, if they want to sign a significant contract with
Mm.
the government or with the private sector or whatever, they say you need an office. Okay, we'll open an office, and there may not be anybody there, or like those type of ways. And I have very specific cases where that happens, and I know personally that that happens. So,
Okay.
and we are not fooled. I mean, we can see through, especially if it's in the government sector. I mean, we know how many employees are
Yeah.
there, how many visas are there, how many staff are there, because all of them require visas and things. So it doesn't fool anybody. So the strong presence is actually partnering with the government in
Okay.
this case, but or with the private sector, being hand in hand, not just go there, get the work, get the check, and disappear. That doesn't work that way.
Mm.
And also, yeah, so we look at real partnership and the investment over long run. Now, this has to be blended to be pragmatic, Nageshwari. So what I mean by that, some markets in the Middle East are not as big as UAE or Saudi. So maybe smaller market. So it may not be economically or pragmatic to open offices and have real staff. But it depends. It needs to be a hybrid again,
Mm.
where you look at opportunities, and as market grows, we need to expand and work accordingly.
Sure. So as I said, you preempted my question where I was going to ask, what are, the qualifications that you look into? How do you kind of assess, the risk associated with collaborating, with a SaaS who is approaching to a government entity? So like you mentioned clearly, they have to abide by the rules and security standards, and, they have to abide by the compliances, Jacob. Other than that, what are the extra other efforts? I'm taking in your local presence and strong presence point as well. Other than this, if a small SaaS, small scale, early stage SaaS founder he want to add a lot of value to the, government entity, and taking all this point, taking into, consideration, what are the other extra efforts that a SaaS founders should be compiling with, doing to, successfully collaborate with the government entity?
Yeah, so if I was running a SaaS company, and I'm the CEO or the COO or whoever, or the project manager of the SaaS company, and I want to grow my market in the Middle East, what I would do is I wouldn't target the government, because governments have
Okay.
very, very stringent entry threshold. So I'll come back to the government. So what I would do is I would look at, first of all, I need to have something unique,
Hmm.
something that which is required in the market, where the market doesn't have that solution. So that's there for everything. Obviously, you
Hmm.
need to have a strong business case. So what I would do is first pitch it with the SMEs, small medium
Okay.
enterprises, get their buy-in, get their support, and that way you get into the waters. You have an office, because you have a business. For example, if XYZ company with say 2,000 employees sign you up, and then you have a business case to open an office. So that will later on help you with larger expand into larger, like governments and
Okay.
large enterprises in the region. So that's the approach I would take. But
Hmm.
so in both my cases, when I was running this large enterprise technology for 18.5 years, and now it is 6.5 years in the government. What I would look at, if for an enterprise, I would look at, there's some things which are common, but there are some things which are different between government and the enterprises. So the enterprises, there are some things which are common. Common things will be looking at due diligence, whether it's financially, that you have registered, you have a trade license, you have an office. I mean, it depends, if you need to have the office, but we also look at the technical feasibility. We look at the security testing of the tools and the solution using pen testing tools. Then we look at also the viability. Like we don't want to deal with the company which is not available, and we also look at support channels available in terms of system integrators. So what happens is that
Mm.
when I mean in my corporate roles, I had number of SaaS solutions deployed. So I needed to have support across the region. So I worked with system integrators who were able to, who were partners with the SaaS provider, but had local presence. They
Okay.
had Arabic support. They were able to provide training. They were able to do integrations between the current platform because corporates have multiple platforms. We need to be able to integrate, really
Mm.
look at porting data. So those are factors which also play in from a SaaS perspective. So if we're dealing with large system integrators, and we know we have worked with them and they vouch for the SaaS provider, that would help. So this is what I looked at from an environment, from a corporate perspective. For governments, we also look at what is the, we look at, again, compliance to local laws and regulations. As a corporate, it will be more of to make sure we are in compliance with the local laws and regulations. Whereas in the government, it's not totally compliance. You look at the spirit and the letter of the law, to make sure it's actually properly implemented. So in the UAE, I've also worked in Saudi previously. It's very strict. They're very thing about actually following the laws and the regulations in letter and in spirit. So we have the UAE IA regulations, we have so many data privacy laws, we look at all that. And so once that initial vetting is completed, Nageshwari, we also look at the technical process. So what happens generally in both the cases, what I've done is we do a small scale pilot.
Okay.
So which is generally a POC, a proof of
Yeah.
concept. And the vendor will say XYZ, but
Mm.
we might say to do X, and then we'll see does it actually deliver it. We
Okay.
don't put real data, but we see what happens is does it actually solve the problem that this company is pitching in,
Mm.
especially if it's a small or a new SaaS provider, as you mentioned, Nageshwari.
Mm.
So there will be a bit more stringent in that. We also work with our legal and risk and quality teams, not just from a technology perspective.
Sure, Jacob. Now, this is opening to so many other questions. I'll go one by one. Because you
Sure.
rightly mentioned, and I have seen your profile as well, given your previous experience in enterprise at PwC, you shared your metrics, the parameters with which you vet. Now, according to your experience, Jacob, how is the SaaS adoption really shaping up the future of enterprises? How are the enterprises really getting, benefited out of these SaaS solutions, according to your experience, Jacob?
Yeah, I think the enterprises are growing leaps and bounds because of SaaS solutions.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is not all companies, are working in the technology domain. So they could be real estates, they could be oil and gas. I'm talking Middle East specific. There's education, government, a lot of
Mm.
industries, education. So what happens is the core business is not technology, but technology is an enabler. It helps them to drive
Mm.
the value or drive the business. But what happens is with the what enterprises and governments want is a solution. Like they want a solution yesterday. They
Mm.
don't want to wait
Mm.
and wait and wait. These days, people
Okay.
don't have patience. So having going for a SaaS solution
Huh.
really makes the deployment process very quick compared to the olden days. So what
Yeah.
happens is that we are able to deploy in weeks rather than months previously. This is
Sure.
assuming it's a new SaaS provider. Obviously,
Mm.
if it's an existing SaaS provider, it's much, much quicker. And
Yeah.
then we deploy it across the region, like in my previous case, or in the government currently.
So, as you mentioned the previous case, if you could share a very interesting case study that you had come across, Jacob, and not so good case study, which also teaches us the red flags which the founder should be looking into before approaching a CIO like you.
Yeah, so the first case would be where SaaS provider was worked very closely. We worked very closely with an SI
Okay.
because there were a lot of this is with regard to GLs, general ledgers,
Hmm.
and this was because we were I was working in a large multinational. Different company in different countries have different ledgers, different laws, different regulations, and also different tax regimes for income tax and a lot of. So there were lots of integrations required.
Hmm.
So I selected a proper SI who was able to deliver the project not only on time but ahead of time, and so people are very happy because it was done ahead of schedule and on budget,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of trainings provided. So the what I would say is you can't, when we're doing a new product deployment like a
Hmm.
SaaS deployment, we can't put all the users in one basket. So we have to customize the training.
Yeah.
For example, the C level people need to be trained separately. What I've seen from practical experience of this nearly 27 years, 27, is that the C level don't like, they might be a bit reserved about asking questions which might be a bit silly, and with the junior staff sitting. So when at a senior level, I always conduct the training separately, and they would be looking more at a strategic value, and they'll be looking at how it helps with improving the processes. Whereas the staff will look at how they can save time. It's a totally different view of how they look at it. So that would be one of the things that SaaS providers can look at. As far as solutions which were challenging, there were also a few. One was to do this was to do with the adoption of voice over IP VoIP,
Okay.
which is a very gray area in the Middle East in terms
Yeah.
of laws and regulations, and it's quite gray in certain areas. It's
Hmm.
not in certain countries. So that had quite a few hiccups. So what happened is that, is that the laws in the countries are quite vague. So when we ask a legal opinion, the lawyers do not actually qualify yes or no. And
Okay.
then it becomes a bit more challenging because of those type of restrictions. But eventually we got through it, and I recommended that we do go ahead, and that's how it was implemented.
Really
So
good
those
to
are some.
really good to know that as a CIO, you are taking that extra effort to qualify and follow up with the legal lawyer. Thanks.
Yeah, because see, end of the day, we have been tasked with to add value to make life of the staff and the management more productive.
Hmm.
So when we have a solution, if there are roadblocks, then it's my duty to advise what we can do to overcome it. Ultimately, obviously, I have the support of the senior management to get it done.
Sure, sure. Thanks for breaking it down, Jacob. Now, you mentioned about the system integrators, and to my understanding, I see there is a strong relationship with system integrators. Now, I want to go a little more deep into that aspect, Jacob. Now, what is the role of system integrator? You mentioned they are doing the installation, and to some extent, they are also recommending SaaS products. Is it so that if it is so, how often are they recommending the SaaS solutions, and are they involved till the negotiation? stage with the SaaS solutions, Jacob?
Yeah, so in my career so far, I've been working at really large setups. So whatever exposure I had, the SIs were not involved in the selection of the SaaS
Hmm.
provider or the SaaS product. This was done by me and my team,
Hmm.
and that's the case with my colleagues also. Because we have the bandwidth, the skills, the resources to make our own decisions. We employ SIs to help augment the service,
Hmm.
which services which the SaaS providers cannot provide, which I alluded to earlier. One is
Yeah.
uh, like, for example, training,
Hmm.
data porting in terms of data cleansing, all those type of things. Whereas if, I mean, again, from a SME market, if as I said, I've been fortunate to work with large enterprises through my career, but whereas if I was in a small company
Hmm.
and I had limited resources, or maybe there's two or three IT staff, and then I would look at SIs to provide, because I don't have the bandwidth in terms of resources, wouldn't have the budget, much of budget, because SMEs struggle with that. So
Hmm.
that's where the SIs will come in, because what happens, the SI will already have relations with
Yeah.
the SME market. And then the CIOs or the IT heads in that companies would ask for, like, the management is looking for such and such solution. What do you recommend? So then that's where they would help in, because the internal tech team is not mature or doesn't have the adequate resources.
Yeah. Sure. So, no, the reason why I'm asking, going a little more deep into SI, is you rightly pointed out they are having the local presence and they are having the, Arabic presence already. Now, for what is your take on this, Jacob? For some SaaS founders who may not have complete local presence in the UAE, but however, if they are partnered with the SIs, so do you recommend them to also initially partner with such already established SIs?
Yeah, that's a good approach, especially as you said, they're just starting in the
Hmm.
UAE, because if you have to actually open your own office, there's a lot of investment. You might have to move
Yeah,
some staff.
yeah.
Whereas, you want to explore the market, but if you're remote, you may not be able to fully understand market needs. So working with SIs, and there are very good SIs in the region who can provide that value.
Hmm.
The other side of it is the SIs, the good SIs are really overwhelmed with a large number of requests from SaaS. There are so many companies running behind them, to be honest. And it is practically what happens today.
Hmm.
So you need to be, there must be something really unique about your product, but then for SIs to come on board and to help push your solution out there.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's other end of it.
and that's super helpful, Jacob. It's a tick mark when it's said by a CIO. So, yeah. Now, shifting the gears to the big boys, large players, Jacob, like, AWS. Now, and, so I'm sure, they come with a specified framework and very defined offerings. There must be times where, you have a very customized, very specific requirement, and at that particular time, might be they are not, serving to the purpose. Now, at this point of time, how do you manage this challenge, this particular change challenge, Jacob? How do you
Yeah,
negotiate?
Nagesh is, yeah. So what I've seen is that the challenge is there, you're correct. But I think it'd be more with IaaS model, infrastructure as a service, or a PaaS model.
And even DAS,
not as
desktop,
not as a SaaS.
even DAS, desktop as a service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. But not in SaaS. Why do I say not in SaaS? So if you take some well-known SaaS products, general, very well known, like if you take ServiceNow
Hmm.
or anything, there's so many of them. If you just take ServiceNow, they are on AWS. So if I'm going to use ServiceNow, I will talk to service.
So, Jacob, you mentioned about the involvement of government entities. That is really exciting to hear the pace at which the government is responding to the SaaS solutions. So, what is your take on it, Jacob?
Yeah, thank you, Nagesh. So, I'm obviously working in the government, but I'm not talking because I'm a government employee. But the UAE government is like it really pushes everything. It pushes the industry, and the industry follows the government. The government goes way ahead. If you look at a lot of things which have happened in both Abu Dhabi, in terms of Abu Dhabi AI initiatives, uh, the partnerships they have recently announced, the Dubai government, UAE government, Dubai Internet City about 10 years back or more. So the government, I've been here in the UAE for 27 years.
Wow.
So I'm not talking like yesterday's experience. What I've seen here is the government always takes lead and the private
Okay.
sector follows, which is quite astonishing when you
Yeah.
compare with the rest of the world, especially, some countries, governments we know very well about, where the private sector goes ahead and government follows much later. But here it's just the other way around, and even everywhere I've seen, the government is way ahead. Even when you talked about digital transformation, the
Hmm.
government pushes much ahead of the corporations. Now, the government is pushing digital transformation to empower its citizens, to empower the residents. One of the biggest success stories is I can think about off my head is the UAE pass. Now, in the UAE, whether you're a citizen or a resident, and you want to access any government, whether it's a local government, federal government, you don't need to have username and password typed and stored in so many services. You just use one ID,
Okay.
one app, and it logs you on to everything. And
Wow.
it's so successful that even the private sector, even the
Uh-huh.
banks, all are adopting the same thing which the government first rolled out. So here the government drives digital transformation, and it's a privilege for me to work with the government sector, actually.
That's awesome, Jacob. Looking for more such government initiatives in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Nagesh. There's so many SaaS solutions. So
Yeah.
what happens is the contract the relationship is with the SaaS provider,
Okay.
and the SaaS provider deals with
Got it.
the cloud provider. So most of the SaaS solutions, to be honest, tie up with AWS rather than anything else. Um, but there are Azure SaaS, there are SaaS solutions on multiple cloud
Yeah.
platforms out there. But the issue comes up with major CSPs like AWS and Amazon when we have IIS and other solutions, not SaaS solutions. This is a very tricky situation. But coming to specifically on SaaS, since you were asking about SaaS, so in SaaS, as you said, we deal with large principles. But if we had our own software, the challenges could be in terms of flexibility to integrate our solution with other applications and out there. There are quite a lot of restrictions
Mm.
on them with that because that's in a SaaS model. So as by definition, it's a shared model. They're sharing with other clients of theirs. So they cannot give a lot of private things for out there for the cloud platform.
No, that's helpful. Jacob. So it's, I understand it's a service now. Is intermittent SaaS solutions who is, kind
Now,
of bit.
ServiceNow is a SaaS model, Nageshwari. It's just an example.
Sure.
There are 1 million
Okay.
SaaS solutions. One of
Okay.
the SaaS solutions is ServiceNow.
Sure.
It's an ITSM tool. It's
Okay.
the largest ITSM tool. There are lots of them. I was just giving an example,
So
not
pardon my ignorance. Maybe,
no. Sorry, and I guess maybe I should use something else. But it's a very large
Okay.
ITSM service SaaS model.
Got it. Got it, Jacob. No, that's helpful, Jacob. Now, I think my second last question. Um, if you could, most of our viewers are the SaaS founders. I'm sure they have, grabbed so many, critical points that you have mentioned, Jacob. But if you had one golden advice to be given to our viewers who are majorly the SaaS founders, maybe from the early stage to the later stage, what would be your advice, Jacob?
Yeah, so I would actually look at the solution to make sure uh, it is solving a real problem for the client. Like there's a strong business case. And it's, if you talk Middle East specific, it's Middle East is something the Middle East market would need.
Yeah.
It is something which supports the different weekends in Middle East. It supports Arabic. So don't try to push something which you develop for, say, market in the Philippines or market for Japan and try to sell the same thing in the Middle East. That would not really work. So you need to look at the market locally. What is look at also the culture, local culture, the environment, and yeah, that's how we look at. So I would start with the single most important is the product. The product must be solving a real business need. So I have known SaaS solutions, very new SaaS solutions being largely very widely deployed in the region, even if it's not from the region, because the people had some major problems which the SaaS providers was able to solve, and they were able to reduce the time required. So it depends if if solving the customer, keeping the focus on the customer. It's something called design thinking, Nageshwari, where the
Sure.
customer is the heart of any solution. So then I think they will do well.
Sure, Jacob. That's helpful. So, just one follow-up question, if you don't mind with the same answer. So, are you trying to say that even if a early stage, again, I'm coming back to the same, even early stage SaaS founder who are, abiding by all the, rules and, having, maybe they are partnering with the SIs and they are having a very strong case study and they are solving a very important problem in abiding by the Arabic culture. Um, how should they build a trust with you as a CIO?
So again, to build trust, generally what happens is, I mean, just generally, not
Mm.
is that large enterprises and governments is very difficult to get hands-on, and especially if you don't have local experience with local delivery. So what
Okay.
happens is what yeah, sales and IT leaders look at is they look for providers who has demonstrated
Okay.
trust, was demonstrated ability to perform locally.
Okay.
So what I would do is to establish trust. If it's a ABC company,
Mm.
I'll look at this ABC company, what have they done in the region,
Mm.
if they've done anything.
Mm.
And then what happens is generally a lot of senior folks are very well networked. Like, a
Mm.
lot of people know me, I know a lot of people. So what happens is if you mention, sorry, if you mention that ABC company has deployed a SaaS solution for some other company, we can actually go to that company's CIOs, get
Okay.
their feedback,
Okay.
and we help out the CIOs in the region are very well connected.
Sure.
I'm in like 6 or 7 groups,
Mm.
and we meet regularly in different forums. We network very well. So what happens, and we share the knowledge. So
Okay.
these are CIO specific groups.
Mm.
The industries are industry from are not welcome. But
Mm.
in these groups, we share what we actually the real experience. So if somebody, even a small, had done a great job,
Mm.
then we would know very soon about it. So
Okay.
answering a question, Nageshwari, how do you build trust is you deploy somewhere um, locally and do it well. And
Mm.
then these people, your past clients, can be your future ambassadors if you have done a good job. That will help build trust and to increase your market share penetration. That's what I would do, Nageshwari.
Sure. Sure, Jacob. Now, my last question, which I ask to most of my guests, what is your, morning routine, Jacob? How do you keep yourself charged? What is your recharge code? You mentioned that you are a student, you keep learning. But to most of us, are you a, if you could share something about your everyday morning routine, are you an early riser or a night owl? If you could share something about that.
Yeah, sure, Nageshwari. I'm very happy and hope this will be useful to either CIOs or budding CIOs. So what happens, I'm a morning person and I get up very early morning. And everybody needs to know what about yourself, whether you're a morning, night person. So what happens is I'm very charged and very sharp in the morning and I get tired off in the evening. So the mornings I do all intellectually challenging things and tasks, everything. I schedule it right in the beginning because I'm very sharp early in the morning. And then as after lunch, I try to keep meetings, routine meetings and things like that. So I use that time there. And
Okay.
in terms of, yeah, I am a student and I believe anybody in technology who needs to survive has to be a student. So what I do is when I'm commuting, I listen to podcasts, quite a few of them. Some are on leadership,
Okay.
some are on spiritual matters, most of them are technical.
Okay.
Where that's how I come to know what's happening out there. There are lots of uh, other things I do. One of it is there's Gartner. I think everybody knows Gartner. There's a Gartner webinars, Gartner symposiums. There's local CIO forums, CIO meetings. So and a lot of networking. We spend a lot of time networking to get to know, say, to get to know from the what's happening out there, and also this networking is very important because you actually what happens is people in the consultants will tell you what it should be, but
Okay.
what is it actually what
Yeah.
actually happens. This is what I alluded earlier about building trust because we are in this group, we are all in the same boat, the CIO. So we open and we share our experiences, and that really helps. And when people see the others are open, even they open up, and there's a lot of learning opportunities. And there are a lot of forums out here to help
Okay.
grow. So that's what I would do, Nageshwari. And I am very passionate about giving back. So that's why I'm doing this interview. I do a lot of them. The idea is, God has been good to me, so trying to give back what I have to the industry, Nageshwari.
No, that's thank you, Jacob. It's an honor to have you, and thank you for sharing your routine, morning routine. It's really
Thank you.
helpful and very, very happy to listen to you today. And I'm sure it is going to impact a larger audience, a larger ecosystem positively, Jacob.